snapping in
How
the...
awkward am I?
I don't even know, but you're on film now, so
Okay.
you don't have to pose or anything.
Okay, cool.
What is the most challenging thing you've gone through?
Dealing with my bipolar and alcoholism.
Okay, so can you talk a little, do you feel comfortable talking a little bit more about that?
Sure, it's, my father was an alcoholic. He was dry for most of my life, but I always knew about it, and I always thought that I, had this heads up that I was high risk, and so I would be able to control it, and that I would never let it get that far. And I was always a party girl, and went from being a party girl to no longer having the choice in drink. And even though I knew I shouldn't be drinking, and that it's not something that I could do in a manageable way, I found myself still drinking, and it was extremely demoralizing. I've had a lot of help from a lot of people, and it's something that I'll probably struggle with for the rest of my life. But it's also taught me a lot about myself and about my powerlessness, and that I'm not always in control. I was raised by, I had a dad and he was around, like I said, but in a lot of ways, my mom had to take the brunt of everything. So I was raised by a really strong woman. I went to an all-girls school where we were taught to be strong and smart and successful and well-rounded. And so I always felt like I had to be in control. And learning that I'm not in control and I can't just, I just couldn't not drink. And it was beyond making a decision and sticking to it. Same thing, I'm not good at dieting. I tend to sabotage anytime I diet. I just have to be more balanced about it. And so it has shown me that I have less control than I thought I did. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that I'm weak. It doesn't mean that I'm incapable. And it doesn't mean that I'm helpless. Right. I have to take care of myself. I have to do a lot of things like my sleep schedule and diet and exercise and things that people should always do, but to keep my brain healthy so that I don't get to a point of weakness, because, my experience has been, and I hope that this doesn't ever happen again, but my experience is that I'll pick up a drink and there's no telling what's going to happen from there.
True. Okay. Explain to me what social media is to you. How do you use it? What do you think about it?
I am very inconsistent with social media. I did not post or rarely posted anything for several years because I was in a bad place in my life and I didn't think I had anything that was post-worthy. My whole life had changed. I was feeling really bad about myself. And I was having a lot of depression and fear and sadness, and that's not what I wanted to put out to the world, which some people do. Some people use social media as a way to express themselves when they are dealing with that. And I think that can be good, but that can also be detrimental, because when you put these things out there, they're out there for good. And if you're in that state, you may not be really thinking about how you want to be portrayed for the rest of eternity on the internet.
Right.
I think social media can be great. I think it can be a great connector. But again, I think it can be self-absorbent and and dangerous. Like, I can't imagine growing up being in middle school and high school with social media.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because of the, like, just some of the bullying and constant comparing to other people. And I think that's a lot of things. Like, when I'm not in a good place, there's sometimes where I'll just be on Instagram and I just, like, have to shut it down and put my phone away because all I do is compare myself to other people.
I feel like, because I know you said that Facebook came out when you were a sophomore in college, and I remember being in the 7th grade making a Facebook, and growing up, I don't think it was as competitive as it is now. Like, I can't imagine being in school, like middle school, high school right now with Instagram and the likes and the comparisons.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when I was growing up, it was just like people would get on, people would either get in like arguments and have little beefs on Facebook, but nobody was saying, oh, this person has this many friends and
right.
this person has this many. And now it's all about followers. It's all about, like, people buy followers.
People buy followers. And it's so, and I think part of my resistance to it is because, like I was saying, I put very high expectations on myself. So if I'm going to post something, like, what am I really saying? Is
Exactly.
it perfect? Is it perfectly crafted?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to regret it? Am I going to feel like a dork? Like,
Yeah.
And wanting to be cool enough. So that's a lot of stress if that's, you know, one of your main forms of communication, or your peers are constantly judging you on that, and you go into school. Like, I mean, middle school and high school are so intense anyways.
Right. Share an embarrassing moment.
So many. So the first thing that pops into my mind is when I was 13 and my parents were having a surprise party for me, which of course I didn't know. And she was my nanny, but she was kind of just this like cool 21-year-old that used to drive me around because I went to private school and we didn't have buses. And so she had me and 2 of my friends, and we went to my mom's house so I could get some clothes for the weekend. And my girlfriends like looked really cute and they were getting dressed, and I had just thrown on some clothes because I was gonna go to my dad's, and so I had wet hair and I had this little beach cover up that my mom bought me that I hated, and I had lacrosse shorts on. And we get there and all these people are in the garage as the garage door opens, and I'm pretty sure I burst into tears, and everyone made fun of me because they said I showed up in a muumuu. And it like wasn't even a muumuu, but it was just like high-waisted, like, so when you're 13 they're like, what is that? Like, that's not cute.
Right. And
So,
you're just like, I just thought I was going to my dad.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I've also split my pants probably 6 times in public.
Oh my God.
Just randomly, like one time was at this dance club and I was on the speakers dancing and they split. Another time was in the elevator on the way to work.
Girl, that's what happens when you got butt.
Yeah, I got butt.
I feel like, has that ever happened to me? I don't want to like talk about it and then it happens, but 6 times, that's a lot.
Yeah.
What don't you want to tell people but know you should share because it could help someone else?
That I'm vulnerable, that I'm insecure, and about my alcoholism. You know, that's a tough thing. It's normal for me to talk about because I'm in recovery, and so it's something that I talk about all the time. But when I'm out in the world, like, I want to be open about it, but I never know what people are going to say. Like, the fact that I just put that out on the internet is pretty crazy, but also it's part of me and it's been a huge experience for me. So it's undeniable, and it's just unfortunate that, you know, I think the stigma is somewhat going away because with the opioid crisis, it's so prevalent and so many people are experiencing this on every level, from every socioeconomic status. You know, it's not just like one race or gender or anything. It can happen to anybody, but you never know what people are how they're gonna judge you. And I have had the experience of it kind of biting me in the ass by telling people.
What advice do you have for anyone who, I guess, is going through that same kind of feeling with insecurity, vulnerability, or substance abuse, like just feeling like they're alone in that, or feeling like they don't want to talk about it, like what can you say to that person?
That they're definitely not alone. Whether or not people have a substance abuse issue, so many people are insecure, and you never know what's really going on in someone's lives. I've had the experience of judging someone and thinking that they had it all together, or they were this way or that way, and then coming to find out that they were actually, suffering too. And that we're all special people, but none of us are terminally unique, where, this is a very big world. And so there's certainly people who have experienced similar things to us in one way or another. The insecurity is hard. Like, it's hard to work on, but you gotta be nice to yourself and give yourself credit where it's due. And I have a hard time doing that. Like, I'm in therapy, and my therapist will be like, well, did you acknowledge that you did X, Y, and Z? And that, because I'll be like, oh, well, I fell short and I didn't do this and I didn't do it perfectly. And she'll ask me if I, gave myself credit for a certain part of it. And my answer is usually no. And that's why I go to therapy, so that I can work on doing that and be cognizant of it and have someone help me point that out. And, gradually you start to give yourself credit where it's due. But it's hard. Like, I grew up, and my mom's dad always used to say to her, and she always used to say to me, there's always going to be someone smarter, prettier, and richer than you. That's just how it is in the world, and you can't avoid it. And I totally tried to absorb that and get on board with it, but I didn't, because I still hold myself to these impossible standards.
I feel that on so many levels.
And that kind of goes back to my whole thing on social media, where it just becomes this big comparison. And like, even if it's not specifically about how many likes you have, just seeing other people. And, like I said, I didn't want to share anything when I didn't think I had anything that was like really positive and glamorous and beautiful to share. And so that's what everyone's, very few people want to show their no makeup pictures, or not even if they don't want to show it, but it just becomes not the norm. We start seeing all the good stuff and all the glamorous stuff and all the things that are situated and painted just the way we want them.
Right.
And it's hard for people to look at that and feel good about themselves.
Or to, like, be honest. What do you feel will restore connection, like, in our generation? What do you think we can do?
Be tolerant and empathetic. Say hi to people. Like, there's people, sometimes I catch myself getting pissed off, like in the grocery store or driving or in any, whatever situation, and just remembering that you have no idea what that other person is going through. When someone doesn't pick up the phone, instead of getting mad at them or feeling bad, like they don't want to talk to you, it's like, I don't know what's going on in their day. Maybe they're really busy. And just having that mindset of, you don't know everything and your assumptions are probably wrong.
Right.
And talking to people, asking questions, figuring out who someone is.
Literally.
Someone you would think that you have no connection to and nothing in common with, that you're polar opposites. You could find out that you guys have something really major in common, or similarities, or struggle with the same thing, because not all of our feelings are, on the outside.
Yes.